Well, hello, fellow elders. It was suggested to me by Kyle that maybe I make this video and share with you what I've learned so far in the 24 to double system. So I'm calling this little recording, "What would Creep Berean look like in 2 years if we implemented the 24 to double church discipleship model?" So I've been through a lot of the material, and I wasn't really able to put it all together until I, of course, made a slide that contained all of the 7 teams and figured out how they all went together. So anyway, that's what I want to present to you is what would Creep Berean look like in 2 years if we implemented the 24 to double church discipleship model. Of course, they begin with telling us we need to come up with a vision statement. So I made one up. This is definitely not something that I'm saying we have to have. We may look at this and say this isn't even close to what we want. But anyway, I made one up because it helps me explain the system. So this is my short version of our vision statement: reach, love, learn, and serve. And then this is the actual statement itself, that we will be prayerfully reaching 500 people by 2025 with the love of Christ, learning to follow him closely, and serving him faithfully using our God-given gifts and passions. And so I just throw that out there. It's definitely probably not where we're going to end up, but it will help us think through if we know that's our vision statement. Anyway, then we have to work on a target audience. And I'm just guessing that our target audience is going to be young families. And the reason I say that is because we really do have a valuable thing to offer to our community when it comes to young families. With Awana, with Vacation Bible School, with our Sunday school program, we're set up to reach families that have young children. And there's other things we could do, of course, but I think that's probably our target audience, and we'll have to discuss that and figure out if that's our target audience or not. All right, now let me share with you how the 7 teams look after 2 years of work, and so that you can get the big picture of where we're going with all of this. So first of all, there's the outreach team, and this is not, I'm not implying that we need to start with the outreach team, but in my story of how this is going to look in 2 years, this makes sense because I want to carry a family from the beginning to the end of our system. And so of this system, whether it's ours or not, we have yet to decide. So anyway, the outreach team. The outreach team is concentrating on 4 major events during the year. We already have 2 natural gifts, our outreaches. We have Christmas, we have Easter, and then we have Vacation Bible School. And maybe the way to make that big outreach on a Sunday is really make a much bigger deal of the kids program after Vacation Bible School on that Sunday, and put a lot of more effort into inviting others to come to that. And then something in the fall, maybe it's something like a Husker tailgate brunch on a Sunday, a Sunday Husker Day. And everyone dresses up in their Husker stuff, and we get somebody from the Huskers that has a clear testimony of Christ, and we invite them to come and speak on that Sunday after we have the tailgate brunch, or some wild thing like that. But anyway, the outreach team is constantly thinking of ways to invite people, to create these events that everybody in the church is encouraged to invite people to. And you'll notice the words invite, invite, invite. And he says over and over in this material that that is the key to getting visitors. Everyone has to be really dedicated to this task of inviting people. And if these are fun events, what an easy way to invite people to come to these events. So anyway, the outreach team has that responsibility, and so that's what they concentrate on, these 4 events. They're planning them about a year ahead, a year in advance. And so let's see, what are we coming up on? Our first event is going to be Christmas. So at Christmas time of this year, the outreach team would be, right after Christmas is over, they would start making the plans for the next year. Plus, they're working on the Easter one. And so you kind of get the picture. So that's the outreach team. Now, the outreach team releases let's say, the young family that comes to one of the events. The arrow now on the slide represents that the outreach team, their job is over when they get the people to the events. So that is their main objective. The outreach team attracts people in, gets them to the event, makes sure they have a great time at the event, and then they release them and they turn them over to the front door team. And the front door team is the team that he describes in this material as they have the attitude of the prodigal son's father. That every person that comes into the parking lot that is a first-time attender, everyone who is visiting is treated like the long-lost prodigal son. And so we kill the fatted calf and we throw a party and we shower them with love. They're met before they get in the parking lot with maybe teenagers with signs that say, "We're glad you're here, God loves you, welcome," or things like that. And then someone in one of the parking attendants has them roll down the window in their car and finds out if they're first-time guests or not. And if they are, they're directed to a certain place in the parking lot. And that lets the people at the front door of the church know that people parking in those spots are first-time attenders. So they've got their eye out looking for these first-time attenders. And so they're taken from the parking lot and they're taken into the church and they're greeted at the door. They're given a short, quick tour. Our building's not that big downstairs, so the bathrooms are pointed out, the coffee bar where they can go have some coffee. That we're going to be meeting in this room right here. Your children, during the service, if they're of a certain age and you want them to go to children's church, all of those kinds of things. The front door team is taking care of all of that. So the front door team includes parking lot people, it includes greeters, it includes ushers. That whole team is just loving on these people and making them feel welcome, doing whatever they can. So then at the end of the service, we invite them to come and meet the pastor. And we designate a spot where the first-time attenders can go, where they will meet up with me or Kyle or both, and we'll have a conversation with them, we'll talk with them, we'll present them with the gift. We'll ask them if they wouldn't mind, if they would fill out some information on the card, and so that we can contact them because we really want to stay in touch with them and just shower them with love that way. And then toward the end of that short little conversation right after church, they are invited to come let me say this. When they're in the hands of the pastors, the front door team's job is over. Because then the pastors invite them to come to the next stage, which is the pastor's breakfast. And so an invitation is given to come back the next Sunday, and there's enticement to come back. Maybe there's a promise of a gift or something to encourage them to come back. Anyway, a brief explanation of this pastor's breakfast is that we want to share with you what our church is all about. If you have questions, you can ask any questions that you want to. So please come and join us. Don't worry about breakfast. We're going to take care of that for you. And come and join us for this time of breakfast. And so they're invited to come to the pastor's breakfast. So if they come next week, and throughout the week they're sent an invitation during the week if they filled out the information so we can contact them. And again, we send them a ticket or whatever to just encourage them to come to the breakfast. And the pastor's breakfast lasts for 2 weeks because the goal is to get them to return. And if they will return for 2 weeks and get connected with other people, the possibility of them staying goes through the roof. And so the pastor's breakfast is a 2-week session. The first session is just explaining what the church is, maybe going through the doctrinal statement, or maybe not that. I'm not real positive about what goes into this discussion, but anyway, the gospel is shared during this time, and people are given an opportunity to trust Christ as their Savior. And then in part 2 of the pastor's breakfast, the vision of the church is shared. Come be a part of this and get plugged in and get connected with people and watch what God does in your life. We have a plan. We're so excited to be able to reach this area for Christ, and we want you to become a part of that, and we can show you exactly how you can fit into this plan, and just kind of do some vision casting in that time. So the pastor's breakfast, and in 2 years, I'm talking about down the road, whenever we get this implemented, the pastor's breakfast is going to be something that's going to happen every Sunday, and those 2 classes are going to repeat every other week. So no matter when they come in, they'll get those 2 sessions. And then once they've been through those 2 sessions, then we have a class called 101 class. And in this class is where they take the spiritual gifts test, and they get to see what spiritual gift they have and their passion and how that fits into our plan and our structure of our church. We talk about baptism and the importance of baptism and encourage them to share their testimony publicly. And if they're not ready to do that yet, that's fine, but we want to give them an opportunity to do that. So Class 101 is basically about spiritual gifts and baptism and understanding how what I'm explaining to you now, how everything fits together. And then you see the arrow goes down, and so then they graduate from that class, and then we have a Class 201. And in Class 201, they learn how to grow as a believer in Christ. And so they'll learn basic Bible study methods and how to pray, and that giving is a part of being a believer, that sharing Christ is part of being a believer. And so all of those elements of basic discipleship are taught in the 201 class. And that's where they learn to grow personally in their walk with Jesus. And then we have a Class 301, and when they graduate from 201, they go into 301. And 301 is the class on how to serve. And that's getting them more established into, what their spiritual gift is. By this time, we hope that we've gotten the word out to the leaders of each one of the 7 teams that this person has this spiritual gift and they have this passion. And so the leaders of those teams are reaching out to the new people that are coming in Class 101, and they're beginning that communication process. Can't wait till you get through Class 301 so that you can come join us and be a part of this. It looks like you're going to be on the worship team, or you have a passion for being on the worship team. If you want to come visit the worship team at any time, we practice such and such, and we would sure invite you to come and be a part of that. So there's a pull from each one of the teams on the people that take the spiritual gifts test, and there's a push. The teacher of the 101, 201, and 301 classes, those three teachers are constantly reminding them that, they're here to serve and find your spot and all of that. So, Pastor's Breakfast, Class 101, Class 201, Class 301, and when they get down to the end of Class 301, the follow-up team has done their job. They have, by that time, they have pretty much connected with us in a real way. They understand who we are, where we're going, and they understand what their part in that plan is going to be. And so that's the concentrated discipleship plan. Now, these classes, 101, 201, and 301, these classes are taught. Let's say there's 3 sessions in Class 101. Well, all 3 sessions are independent of each other. So 101 will teach Lesson 1, Lesson 2, Lesson 3. And somebody may join at Lesson 2. That means they have to go through Lesson 3 and Lesson 1. And so these classes are constantly going on. And the way that I see this working is this takes the place of adult Sunday school classes. We're not retraining those who have already been trained. We want to train those who are coming new into our church. And just let me say this, that a good way to start this out, evidently, and what other churches have done, is they've encouraged their people to go through this followed-up team process, to go to the pastor's breakfast and experience it, take Class 101, 201, 301, so that when they invite their friends, they have a great understanding of what's going to happen in this process. And so at the beginning, when we get these things established, this would, we could ask the people with the last names A through D to come to the pastor's breakfast next week and experience it for yourself. And, and that's how we would get this thing rolling. So just wanted to point that out. Well, the other teams I'm sure you've heard of, the Shock and Awe team. This is the one that handles the video and the sound and the lights, and if there's any drama, the church decorating. The Shock and Awe team is just making our building and our presence something that people will remember. And so there's a lot of training on the Shock and Awe team. And then we have the worship team, and this team is doing exactly what they're doing now, which is getting ready to lead us on Sunday mornings through a very worshipful experience. And then there's the children and youth team. And of course, that's kind of self-explanatory what that one is. This is the team that works. This is where Awana would fit. This is where Sunday school would fit. This is the team that takes care of the children and youth of the young families that we want to attract to our church. And so it's got to be a real high quality kind of thing, which I think our stuff is already pretty high quality. And so children and youth is part of this process. That's one of the teams. And then there's the small groups team. And the small groups team is fed after Class 301. They're encouraged to find their place of service, their place of ministry, and within those ministries, there will be small group teams. So the children and youth team will have small groups in it. The worship team, small groups. Shock and Awe, small groups. And the purpose of these small groups is to get together and pray for their particular area of ministry. They can do planning. They can do just concentrate on their team and what their team needs to be doing. And so the small groups team kind of oversees all of the small groups and makes sure that people get plugged into the right team and kind of watch over all of that. So I don't know if this helps you or not, but it helped me to put it all in a format like this and take a look at it, see how it's all connected, how the outreach team leads to the front door team, which leads to the follow-up team, which then puts people in small groups. And we've got the worship with the shock and awe and the worship team. That's an ongoing thing where people are involved in that, and then the children and youth team. So what we'll be asking people to do is three things. We'll want them to come to the worship service, of course, because that's where we as a body corporately worship, and that's just a time of great encouragement. And then we want them to serve on one of these 7 teams. And then we want them to be involved in a small group where they are growing themselves and working together with others to reproduce Christ in the lives of other people. All right, so there you have it. This is about a 20-minute introduction, and maybe if you have this picture in your mind as you watch some of the other modules and as we evaluate and pray about this, maybe this will help you plug this in. So it's enjoy, at least I hope that this is going to be something that's going to be helpful to you. All right, that's it.